I wanted to record this webinar about the new constitutional framework for our institute because on Friday, 18th October, our registrars, who are acting as scrutineers, Equinity, will be sending out notices of a general meeting to all members in the UK, the Crown Dependencies, the Republic of Ireland, and our members in at least 60 associated territories, as we call them. And together we call all those countries UCREAT. Not the most engaging acronym, but I hope if I use it, you will now understand at least the broad geographical area about which I'm speaking. I'm delighted that we're having this general meeting in London on the evening of Wednesday, 11th December 2013. It's an important milestone in trying to reform the constitutional framework of our institute, to bring it up to date, and to help UCREAT and the other 8 divisions of our institute thrive in the world that badly needs the expertise that our members are able to offer, particularly in connection with restoring trust in business. So there are some slides. I would like to just talk you through those, and if you have any questions, you'll see when we get to the penultimate slide, there's an email address to which you can send any questions which you may have. So why are we doing this? What are these? What are the benefits of what's being proposed? Well, at the heart of the representations made by members in the overseas divisions of the Institute 2 years ago, which culminated in the adjourned general meeting held in December 2011, was a belief that the bylaws under which the Institute and its council currently operate are inherently unfair because there is an inbuilt majority on the council of 2 for the benefit of the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland. And when 35% of the membership worldwide of our institute is in the UK, Republic of Ireland and the associated territories, one can understand why it can be contended that the current setup is undemocratic and old-fashioned. And as the first bullet point on the slide says, we want to substitute a more equitable framework based on principles of good governance. That means that local interests will be protected and represented more fairly, and sad though it is to have to admit it, it will bring to an end years of infighting which have hindered effective collaboration and smooth running, and have hindered the UCREAT from focusing on the home market, as I call it, the interests of our members in the UK, the Crown Dependencies, Ireland, and in the associated territories. So those are the major benefits of this change. We will be able to stop worrying about these international disagreements and focus on the home market. I think that is terribly important. The next slide gives you the current structure of our institute. There in the middle at the top you see the institute, and below it the governing council, which has on it representatives from the UK and Ireland and from each of the 8 divisions. The 8 divisions are set out in a list in alphabetical order in that box on the right as you look at the screen. Southern Africa, so described because the Southern Africa division comprises South Africa and 4 other nations at the south of the African continent. Each of the divisions is overseen by a divisional committee. Each divisional committee is a committee of the council, and there has been delegated to each divisional committee powers and duties under the bylaws which are carried out on behalf of the Institute in the territory for which the divisional committee is responsible. Below the box 8 divisional committees, you've got another box, 8 service companies. The service companies are the local law equivalent of a company limited by guarantee. And in each of the jurisdictions, the service company holds on behalf of the members in the division the assets of the division in that division's territory. The management of the service companies is overseen by the divisional committee in each territory. When this structure was put in place in 1999 with the promulgation of the current bylaws, a bare majority of the members were in UCREAT. That situation has changed in the intervening 15 years. The UK committee, like the divisional committees, is a committee of the council, but UCREAT was never established as a legal entity in its own right. It's always had this slightly different existence, and I'm not sure that everyone in the divisions has necessarily understood the nature of the relationship. But in essence, the UK committee is no different to a divisional committee in one of the 8 divisions. However, the assets used by UCREAT for the benefit of members in UCREAT belong to the Institute. They've not been vested in a service company. So that marks a significant difference between the legal setup for the UK committee and the 8 divisional committees on the other hand. Moving on to the next slide, you have here illustrated the proposed structure. Again, in the middle you have the Institute, its governing council. This will be a smaller council. At the moment, there could be, at a meeting of the council with a full turnout, there could be as many as 35 people in the room, including 9 chief executives. And I'm sure you'll agree with me that that is a pretty cumbersome structure for a governing body of an institute. Instead, membership of the council will depend on the number of members in each division. So on the assumption that each division doesn't have fewer than 1,000 members, and if it does, we set that to one side, each division will have a minimum of 1 member on the council. For every further 3,000 members, each division will have a further member on the council. And that means with the current membership in UCREAT, UCREAT would have 4 members on the newly constituted council. You will see that this structure is different because there's now, instead of 8 divisional committees, there are now 9. And that is because it is intended, if the charter amendments are passed by the members in general meeting and the new bylaws are passed by the members at that general meeting, it is intended thereafter to establish UCREAT as a division of the Institute with the benefit of a delegation agreement on broadly similar terms to the arrangements which obtain in relation to the existing 8 divisions. And the UK committee of the council will become the UCREAT committee of the council. Obviously, its composition will need to change to reflect the fact that there are fewer representatives on the governing council of the Institute. Dropping down from the box which says 9 divisional committees, you have to your right, as you look at the screen, 8 service companies in the 8 other divisions, and in the prospective UCREAT division you have a UCREAT committee and then UCREAT Nominees Limited. UCREAT Nominees Limited has already been incorporated. It is a company limited by guarantee, and it will operate as a nominee company. The intention is that the UCREAT assets currently vested in the Institute will be held by UCREAT Nominees Limited as a nominee on behalf of the Institute. That the management and care of those assets is being specifically delegated in the proposed new bylaws to the UCREAT Committee of the Institute. This arrangement resolves an issue which rather burdened the constitutional discussions that took place in the years following the promulgation of the existing bylaws in 1999. And by establishing the UCREAT committee with its own service company in this way, and with the new bylaws entrenching the management and care of these assets to the UCREAT committee, the concern about the UCREAT assets has now been, thankfully, put to bed. You'll notice at the top left of the screen another company, ICSA nominees. This again is another company limited by guarantee, which has already been incorporated. There are some residual institute assets. For those of you who've been to 16 Park Crescent may have seen in the trophy cabinet in the Nash suite. Some of you may know it as the council chamber, but you'll have seen, for example, the silver secretary bird. And there's some rather beautiful glass crystal in that cabinet as well. There are various works of art that we have in the building here. There are various replicas of the coat of arms. These are all institute assets. There are various books and other ephemera. So ICSA nominees will be responsible for holding those. So that essentially is the new structure. One feature which is missing from that diagram concerns a very important committee, the Professional Standards Committee. Currently, the Professional Standards Committee, which oversees education standards, is an ad hoc committee of the Council. It performs an essential role overseeing the content and marking of examinations in UCREAT and in the 8 divisions. And its role is essential to maintaining high educational standards. The new bylaws establish the Professional Standards Committee as a standing committee of the Council. Membership is not drawn from all the divisions on an equal basis. Membership is dictated by the qualities and qualifications that a person has, which will enable him or her to contribute meaningfully to assuring the educational standards of our institute. So a vital committee, and there's a suite of bylaws, 8 of them, which you will find in the draft bylaws, which you will be receiving with the notice of meeting. These ought to flood onto your doormats in the fairly near future. So, having reviewed in a diagrammatic way the current structure and the proposed structure, what are the key changes? Well, the inbuilt majority of UKRI members on the Council is being removed. And that's got to be right. That has to be right in principle. UCREAT will become a division on broadly the same terms as existing divisions, and existing UCREAT assets will be protected. Those assets include, for example, the shares in the wholly owned subsidiary ICSA Software International, the Institute's 60% holding in another subsidiary, ICSA Boardroom Apps Limited. This is the company which develops and sells the paid-for app, BoardPad, a very successful product. For the first time, members in the associated territories will be properly represented. They will now be able to stand for election to the UCREAT committee and will be able to vote in those elections as well. That has been a gap in our democracy which has to be put right. That, again, is a necessary principled change. And as I mentioned before we moved away from the previous slide, professional standards will be preserved internationally through establishing the Professional Standards Committee. And I should add, giving it more effective sanctions where divisions are not setting and marking examinations to what the PSC feels is a proper and acceptable standard. What are the next steps? Well, the first bullet point actually is a past step. The Charter and Bylaws were sent to the Privy Council Office for informal consultation. That's a necessary part of the process. And I'm delighted to tell you that there were no comments at all from the Privy Council Office or its advisors. There will be a general meeting of members of the Institute on the 11th of December this year at 6 p.m. And I've highlighted there the fact that there will have to be supermajorities of those voting in favour for those changes to the Charter and the Bylaws to go into effect. The amendments to the Royal Charter are set out in the notice of meeting document. 75% of those voting will need to vote in favour. Behind the proposed amendments to the Charter, you will find the suite of new bylaws which are being proposed. These are a much more modern set of bylaws. They will help us to run the Council and the divisional committees in a much more effective way. The committee, the group of 4 members of the Council who worked on these, have done a terrific job in producing these bylaws, in crafting them in a way that will meet the needs of the Institute. Their foresight in realising that they had a once-in-a-generation opportunity to modernise our Constitution has to be commended. So, being optimistic and assuming that the necessary supermajorities are achieved on the 11th of December, we will then apply to the Privy Council for the issue of an amended Charter, and we will apply also for the approval of new bylaws by the Privy Council. Apparently that's an interesting procedure. The Queen attends in person, and all meetings of the Privy Council are apparently conducted with everyone, including the Queen, standing up. I didn't know that, but I'll just throw that little bit of information in. Once the amended Charter has been issued and the bylaws have been approved, and a commencement date has been agreed with the Privy Council, in fact, well, they will dictate what the commencement date is, then the newly constituted and smaller Council of the Institute will meet to establish formally the new UCREAT division and to approve the delegation agreement, conferring the necessary powers and duties on the UCREAT committee on behalf of the division. We have a defined benefit pension scheme, and before we can vest the new service company, UCREAT nominees, we will need the agreement of the pension fund trustees to that vesting. That is simply because we have to assure the trustees that the assets which underpin the employer's covenant in respect of the pension fund will be unimpaired and undiminished. We will need to enter into what is called a flexible apportionment arrangement with the pension fund trustees under Section 75 of the Pensions Act 1995. This approval will be sought formally once the Charter amendments have been approved by the Privy Council and the new bylaws have been issued. But we are working with the pension fund trustees now and giving them all the information that they need in the hope that they will feel able to approve the vesting of assets in UCREAT Nominees Limited as nominee for the Institute. And assuming all those steps are passed successfully, and I am an optimist, then we will formally vest UCREAT nominees by transferring the various assets, the main ones being shareholdings in subsidiary companies and intellectual property rights in UCREAT Nominees Limited. As to a timescale, I think the new setup, the new constitutional framework should be in place and UCREAT nominees vested, I would hope, by the middle of next year. That's the time frame to which I'm working. I'm not being pessimistic in suggesting that. We obviously have to work with the Privy Council office. They have fixed dates in their diary for when the Privy Council meets. They will doubtless wish an interval to elapse between formal approval of the new bylaws and their coming into force. There will then be the need to call a meeting of the Council, and time has to be, proper notice of that has to be given. So you will understand, I'm sure, that it will take a little while, but I'm hopeful that by the middle of next year, everything will be done. The slide you have up now, entitled Questions, gives you an email address to which you can email any questions which you may have. We will turn those around and reply as soon as we are able. But do feel free to get involved. And can I ask you, though, before you send in a question, could you please read the letter from the International President Gavin Downs, his summary of the proposals, There's an explanatory note, and for those who are keen to understand all the detail, there's a derivation table enclosed as well, so that you can understand the relationship of proposed new provisions to current provisions in the Charter and Bylaws. So, but do please read the letter and the summary and the explanatory note as a first step. Do at least read those, please. Can I now add this plea to you all? The UK Committee of the Institute fully supports these proposals. I am authorised to tell you that, and I would ask you please to vote. Please do not discard the proxy form and the other papers. Please vote. It is so important that these changes go through. They will, if promulgated, inure for the benefit of the Institute and enable us to go forward on a much more equitable basis with our colleagues in the divisions. The disagreements which have sadly clouded relationships over the last 15 years or so will become a thing of the past, and thankfully will, I'm sure, be forgotten. Time is a great healer. But it will also allow me and my executive team to pursue our strategy for re-establishing the place of our institute as a body, a trusted leader in the field of governance, helping our members in the fields of governance, risk and compliance. Our members are experts. They need our support. We need to grow income. We need to update the range of products which we offer to our members and to our stakeholders. And if we can have all these constitutional differences behind us, that has got to help us as we focus on serving our members, our affiliated members, and our stakeholders. So moving now to the last slide, very important matter, return of proxy forms. And I repeat, do please vote in favour. I hope you do. There are the return addresses. If you choose to return your proxy form by post, there's the postal address. If you wish to return your proxy form by email, you may. You'll have to scan in the proxy form. Please don't forget, however you return the proxy form, to write in your membership number and scan it in, then email it to that dedicated email address that you have there. And for those who prefer to use fax, then you can fax the completed proxy form back. Please follow the instructions on the proxy form carefully. We don't want any spoiled papers. And the count will be undertaken by Equinity, who've been appointed as scrutineers for the purposes of the general meeting. The proxy form, of course, must arrive not later than 6 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time on Monday 9th December for it to be valid. There can be no extension to that. That is the latest at which completed proxy forms can be received. And at that time we will have to turn off that email address, and also that fax number, that will close down as well. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope this explanation of the proposals has been of some help to you. And I repeat, in conclusion, my request. Do please get involved in this. It matters to all members of our institute. I hope you will vote in favour. Thank you.